Good afternoon. Good afternoon. All right, let's try this. I don't hear an echo, so I think we're okay. Can anyone just give me a thumbs up or a chat if you can hear my audio okay? Thumbs up. All right, great. Sorry about that. Still working it out in these new conference rooms. So thanks everyone. I was going to say we're going to wait until 12:02, but now it is 12:02, so I guess we will get started. So thank you everyone for joining. My name is Ed Kranich. I'm Associate Director of Incentives with the Connecticut Green Bank, working on the Energy Storage Solutions Program. In the room here, I also have Sarah Pine, Brendan Smith, and Lawrence Taylor. So I'm going to turn it over to Sarah to get us kicked off and introduced here. And thank you, Sarah.
Awesome. Thanks, Ed. Just wanted to start us off with a quick housekeeping update. If you could please keep yourselves on mute for the duration of the presentation, that would be awesome. When the time comes for questions at the end, please use the hand raising function and we will call on you, or feel free to drop your question into the chat. If you have additional questions at a later time, or if we run out of time to cover all the questions, we do have the energy storage solutions at ctgreenbank.com email address, and we can direct any questions to the appropriate parties. So thank you for that. All right, we have the energy storage solutions team joining us today from the Green Bank. We have a couple folks from Eversource and United Illuminating as well. And we have a quick reminder or introduction for some folks on the Energy Storage Solutions. Energy Storage Solutions is a program that is overseen by PURA, the Public Utilities Regulatory Authority, and co-admined by Eversource and UI and the Green Bank. There are 7 program objectives, which are to provide positive net present value to all ratepayers, provide multiple types of benefits to the electric grid, foster the sustained and orderly development of a state-based electric energy storage industry, prioritize delivering increased resilience to low and moderate income customers in environmental justice or economically distressed communities, customers on the grid edge, and critical facilities. Also, lower the barriers to entry, maximize long-term environmental benefits of storage, maximize the benefits to ratepayers derived from the wholesale capacity market. And for anyone that needs a quick reminder or introduction to the Connecticut Green Bank, the Green Bank's mission is to confront climate change by increasing and accelerating investment in Connecticut's green economy to create more resilient, healthier, and equitable communities. All right, we can go to the next slide. Thanks.
And actually, just one housekeeping item I just wanted to mention while we're here. So this meeting is being recorded, and we will post a copy of this along with the slides on the Green Bank or on the EnergyStorageCT.com website within a few days after the meeting, and we'll send a notification to all the attendees when it's available. And just a quick note, our IT policy does not allow the AI note takers. So unfortunately, if I think we see a Fireflies and maybe a couple other in here, we will have to remove you. So just FYI, the AI note takers are not going to be permitted, but we will have the recording available. So thanks. Back to Sarah.
Awesome. Thanks. I'm sorry about that. All right. So here's the very quick agenda before we jump right into the annual review. Next slide, please.
This one.
Next one. Next one. All right. So here's a super quick timeline of some of the important energy storage solutions docket milestones from 2025. The written comments were distributed on June 9th, and this is where PURA started to initiate feedback on redesigning incentive structures, C&I attrition rates, and systems that were no longer visible in the DERMS platforms. Program administrators filed the annual program recommendations and program manual on August 1st. And then there were additional written comment opportunities in the docket after that on August 22nd, where Construct 5 was presented and then proposed in the final decision, which was released on November 24th. And then finally, December 17th, the final decision went into effect. This is where PURA adopted Construct 5, which is a new pay for performance framework effective for all new customers, residential and C&I, enrolling on or after April 1st, 2026. This model will replace the passive upfront incentive with a smaller incentive paid at completion upon DERMS visibility and uses a larger 10-year performance incentive. Enrollment incentives are $10 per kW for priority commercial and $30 kWh for non-grid edge residential and $130 for grid edge residential. Performance incentives are fixed for residential at $300 per kW standard, $450 for underserved and $550 for low income, and front loaded for commercial with higher rates in years 1 through 5 and lower rates in years 6 through 10. Don't worry if you didn't catch all of that. Ed will be covering that later in the presentation. Next slide, please. Awesome. So some other items that were covered in the final decision are that PURA retained the two-step incentive enrollment process with the reservation of funds letter for Construct 5. This now locks in both the enrollment incentive and the 10-year performance incentive rate. This provides financing customers and developers with better certainty, which is awesome. Customers may choose to receive performance payments annually or biannually. And then winter active dispatch events increase from 1 to 5 to 1 to 10 to reflect growing winter peaks. The number of summer dispatch events stays the same. To address commercial attrition, PURA determined Construct 5 helps reduce speculation, but additionally added a $350 non-refundable commercial application fee at the reservation of funds stage to further reduce speculative applications. Additionally, in the annual review, new safeguards were discussed to address systems inoperability and OEM bankruptcy risk, including financial health reviews and the exploration of the reconnection solutions for orphaned systems. And then PURA also waived 2025 upfront incentive clawbacks to avoid customer harm. Next year, they can be pulled from any active payments. A couple more items here on this side, sorry. Existing non-export battery systems may participate in energy storage solutions if interconnected before Jan 1 of 2026. And then bidirectional EVs are deferred for at least 1 year with a working group due March 1st, 2026. and then a report to PURA by August 1st, 2026. If anyone is interested in participating in that working group, please feel free to send me a note and we will get you looped in with the right folks. And then other implementation milestones include Construct 5's launch and the application fee, which will both go into effect on April 1st. And then an enhanced ESS data dashboard by June and updated program documentation to PURA in August. So that wraps that slide up, and handing it over to Brendan to go through passive dispatch.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, again, my name is Brendan Smith. I'm a manager on the energy storage team here at Green Bank. As Sarah mentioned, we are phasing out passive dispatch per the final decision, PURA's final decision. And this is for all new systems starting April 1st of 2026. So we're now referring to passive enrolled systems as legacy passive. The existing systems that are enrolled and considered legacy passive won't be affected by the changes from Construct 5. So the red boxes here are indicating the elements that are changing. So prior to this change, so existing legacy passive was composed of two components, the passive dispatch, which were the pre-scheduled events, and the active dispatch events that were called by the utility. So the upfront incentive and passive dispatch are what's going away. And then another element is the winter dispatch events. The maximum is increased from 5 dispatch events up to 10 dispatch events in the winter. So new systems that are enrolled on or after April 1st, 2026, the upfront incentives will no longer be available, but they also will have no obligation to follow the pre-programmed passive dispatch schedule. The focus is going to be shifting to the active dispatch events called by the utilities, and these will receive a higher performance-based incentive. It's going to go into that in a little bit more detail. Next slide. So existing systems that are enrolled in passive are expected to continue dispatching on the pre-programmed passive schedule. So all non-holiday weekdays for June, July, and August. So you can see those boxed in red there. And then the expectation is still to respond to active events and cancel passive events that are superseded by active events. So that's unchanged for legacy passive systems. And then also what's unchanged for legacy passive systems is the outage protection. So that storm event. So manufacturers that have outage protection software features on their products that opt out of events when there's storms that are predicted to cause outages. Those are still allowed in the program, and we will still be asking those manufacturers for the outage protection data to ensure that those systems are given credit for those events that they opt out of. Slide. And then again, it is going to go into more detail on this, on the new incentives. But these upfront incentives in the box here are what's going away. So they're available until that cutoff point. Next slide. And then existing systems that are in legacy passive are also still, something's missing from that slide. Oh. I forgot that those were programmed in when I dropped those slides in. So that those systems will still be subject to the clawback of the upfront incentive if those systems are underperforming. So this should be familiar to folks that have been participating already. This is the formula for hourly performance under passive. And then next slide. And then this is the formula for seasonal performance. I'm not going to go into detail on these, but if you want to dig into the details of how these systems work, we did a webinar back in February of last year, passive dispatch webinar. And if we go to the next slide, you can find a recording and the slides for that webinar on the Energy Storage CT website. It's energystoragect.com. If you go to for contractors, there's a lot of information there that's valuable, but among them are the slides and the passive dispatch webinar recording. And then last for me is the data dashboard for the program. So we're planning some updates to the data dashboard. If you're not familiar with this dashboard, you go again to the website, the program website, and go to the reporting tab. The updates that we're planning is to provide active and passive performance numbers by project and to make these also sortable by contractor and by storage system manufacturer. So those changes we're expecting to roll out sometime before summer season 2026. But definitely check out that page because there's lots of useful information there. And that's it for me. So I'm going to hand it off to Ed Cranch.
Thanks, Brendan. So as you can all tell so far, the annual review this year had a lot of small, medium, and large size changes that kind of spread all throughout all aspects of the program. So here's just a little bit of a summary of some of the kind of medium to large size changes that we've made or that we will be making once the program manual is approved in about a week or so, or sorry, about 2 weeks or so we're expecting. So there's the $350 commercial application incentive or commercial incentive application fee that Sarah mentioned. So starting on April 1st, there will be an application fee for all C&I project applications, regardless of size. And that was as part of PURA's aim to reduce commercial project attrition. So those who watch our commercial capacity will notice that we kind of gain and lose megawatts pretty frequently, most recently having lost about 30 megawatts at the end of 2025. So along with the incentive design changes, which we'll get into in the next slides, PURA is really aiming to reduce the number of speculative projects that come in. So this application fee will be in the form of a check payable to the Connecticut Green Bank, and that'll be submitted around the same time that you submit the application itself for a commercial customer, which will come, early on in the process after signing of the contract and submitting the interconnection application. Next, we have some provisions on system interoperability. So again, as Sarah mentioned, namely, this is to address the 100 or so SunPower SunVaults that are currently inoperable in Energy Hub and Uplight due to SunPower's bankruptcy and shutting down their grid services. So for contractors out there that have a SunPower system or that have installed a SunPower system or several, you'll be hearing from us probably in the next couple of weeks or months. We have mentioned, I think, over the last year or so that we've been going down a few different avenues to try to find a solution to get these systems back connected to the program so they can still be compliant with passive and active dispatch. So far, we've hit a lot of dead ends, but we have one that we think might be pretty promising right now. So as we start to get into testing, we'll reach out to contractors about potentially a solution that we're pretty hopeful for. So next, there is a requirement. So every system that has an interconnection after 12/31/25 has to be export if it's joining ESS. So if the interconnection was approved in 2026, it's got to be export. There's no other way around that. So that means that for the existing customers who maybe had an old Tesla Powerwall that tried to join ESS. We couldn't let them in over the last year or two. Those customers actually can now reapply if they don't have export interconnection because their interconnection was issued prior to this year. So they can be admitted to the program. You just may want to notify those customers that their incentives might be a little bit lower because if their system is programmed to not export, then it may not be reaching its full capacity for active dispatch. And next up, we have a new incentive beneficiary form, which will be included as a standalone form and attached to the program manual. And that will allow customers, again, as Sarah mentioned, we now have the ability for customers to designate if they get one payment or two payments a year for their performance incentives, and a much easier way for them to sign over incentives to another entity, which can include a contractor, a bank, any type of lender or OEM. So for OEMs and TPOs that are on the line, if you want to give your customers a greater upfront discount in exchange for their 10-year stream of performance payments, this form is the way to unlock that. And finally, we're excited that we have a single streamlined terms and conditions document that'll go into effect on April 1st. So for all the contractors out there who had to sign various different T&Cs with the customers for different OEMs, we have solved that problem going forward. So there's one T&C for the whole program. So we're excited for that. And then, of course, finally, the biggest change is Construct 5, which we will get into now. So this is the new incentive design that's going to be effective on April 1st. So what is Construct 5 and why do we call it that? The name is thankfully a temporary designation. We won't plan to use this name after April 1st because at that point, it'll just be the Energy Storage Solutions Program. It's just the law of the land for the program. So the name actually just comes from Pura's proposed options for reconstructing ESS. I think back in mid-August is when they first proposed these options, and they just settled on number 5. So we just kind of went with calling it Construct 5 for now. So it's only a temporary term, so you don't have to use that when talking to customers and confusing them. Passive dispatch, it was determined, passive dispatch still has utility in providing that safety net to ensure some level of peak production or peak reduction, but it's been difficult to implement across the different OEMs. So that's why we're removing it for new customers. We're hoping that by making it, more performance-based and more analogous to other VPP programs across the country, it'll attract more participants who don't need to reinvent everything in order to enter the Connecticut market. So this means no passive dispatch will be required for new customers. It'll maintain this enrollment incentive, even though there's no passive dispatch, which means that there's no clawback as long as the customer stays enrolled. So there's no tranches or steps. And Pura stated in their decision that they don't intend to change the rates frequently, so it may just be reviewed on an annual basis, but we'll leave it to Pura to decide that as part of their annual review if they do want to change any of the rates. So the goal here is to maintain the same peak reduction benefits while de-risking ratepayer funds by not providing all the money up front. Customers can end up actually earning more, which I'll show in a few moments, some examples, but only if their battery performs well. The resilience benefits for battery owners can actually increase since there will be fewer overall dispatches because there's typically not many active dispatches in the month of June, and less risk, therefore, of a dispatch happening before an outage. So Brendan had mentioned earlier that we do have an upcoming data dashboard, which will show performance really by OEM. And this will be a good way to determine really when picking equipment, who has the best performance and, one, who is less subject to passive dispatch clawbacks in the past, and also who has the best response rate to events. And that can help you, kind of maximize an incentive for a customer by picking kind of the best performing OEMs. So to summarize this, enrolling in this new design, which will be the only option following April 1st. It will mean that the customer will not be enrolled in passive dispatch, whether they're residential or commercial. The customer may receive an enrollment incentive, meaning an upfront discount, and that depends on the type of customer, which we'll get into in a moment. They will be enrolled in active dispatch, just like all the other customers. They have to be enrolled for the full 10 years. And participation in active dispatch is going to be totally optional, where last year, the way that we updated the passive dispatch structure and performance calculation kind of inadvertently made active dispatch a little bit less than optional in some cases because active dispatch performance was factored into your passive dispatch performance. So that was complicated. So with passive dispatch removed, active dispatch is now totally optional. The dispatch season will remain the same, although as Brendan mentioned, there's going to be a few more winter dispatches planned, probably not more than another 5 or so, so it doesn't really change very much. No clawback for poor performance, no tranches. And finally, the customer-led active-only enrollment will still be available, but it'll have a little bit more narrow use case, and we kind of expect it to just not really be utilized anymore. So if you are a contractor who's an eligible contractor and you currently work through the application portal and you submit applications on behalf of customers, you don't really need to worry about this. The customer-led active-only enrollment already had a narrow use case, and that was for systems that had been installed for a long time or really just for Tesla Powerwall 1s and 2s. That will still be available because those customers won't be able to access enrollment incentives. But I think it'll have a narrow use case, and most customers will want to apply through an eligible contractor since that is the only way to access the enrollment incentive. So speaking of enrollment incentives, what are they? And really, it's the same as an upfront incentive. We just gave it a different name to reduce the confusion. They're both upfront incentives, but we're just calling this one the enrollment incentive. It's the same look and feel. So it's an upfront discount, given to the customer at the point of sale. We pay it to the contractor following completion of the project. Same application and payment process. The only thing that differs is the values and the rates because the program is designed to be weighted a lot more heavily on the performance incentive and less on the upfront. So the contractor will still have to apply on the homeowner's behalf. Pura had noted or ordered the revision for eligibility, being that the application has to be submitted within 6 months of interconnection approval. So once the project, it's intended that the application for an incentive reservation come through really at the point of sale, but you technically have 6 months within interconnection approval to submit it, or 1 year if the contractor had just become eligible or the equipment had just become eligible. It's available to all residential customers, which includes multifamily affordable housing, which can access the low income incentive, and priority commercial customers. So this does not include an enrollment incentive for standard commercial customers. So the rates here are, we have grid edge and non-grid edge residential. Grid edge residential will have an enrollment incentive rate of $30 per kilowatt hour of battery capacity. Residential grid edge is $130 per kilowatt hour of battery capacity. Non-priority commercial customers, meaning anyone who's not a small business, grid edge, critical facility, or replacing a fossil fuel generator, there's no incentive. There's no enrollment incentive available for those customers. But for those who are a priority customer, it's $10 per kilowatt hour of capacity. It seems very low, but it still actually pencils out pretty much equivalent, which I'll show in the next couple of examples. So while the performance incentive structure is generally not changing for new customers, the rates now are changing. So you may remember for the current structure, every single type of customer, no matter what their category was, residential, commercial, low income, underserved, they all got the same performance incentive rate, which was $200 per kilowatt for the first 5 years and $125 for the next 5 years in the summer. And it was a split summer winter rate. What Pura has done for this round, for this new construct, is merged both the summer and winter together. And for residential customers, just made it one straight rate for the whole year for each of the 10 years. So this makes the sale a lot easier. It makes calculating an estimated rebate a lot easier. We will have new calculators that will be posted pretty soon. So it did keep the years 1 through 5 and 6 through 10 rates intact for commercial customers as a way to help front load those incentive payments to offset the fact that there's a much lower enrollment incentive. But generally, same idea, just new rates. So you can see small and medium commercial customers are actually grouped together in the same rate. So it's not small, medium, and large anymore. It's just small and medium at one rate and large at another. And residential still has that standard underserved and low income, but now it's on the performance instead of the enrollment incentive. And that's $300, $450, and $550 for standard residential and low income, respectively. And again, low income residential includes multifamily affordable housing. So I've got a couple examples here, and just make sure that I have a pointer up here so you could see everything. So this is for a kind of a small to, sort of typical size residential system. So this is comparing on this side here, the current structure, and on the right side here, the new quote unquote construct 5. So in the rows here, we have standard grid edge, underserved grid edge, low income grid edge. And this is for a 15 kilowatt hour, 10 kilowatt battery. So that's like one Tesla Powerwall 3 or one Franklin A Power 2. So you'll see for standard customers, it's either 9,000 or 10,600 for the current rates. That goes up to 11,250, 12,750. Again, this is considering, that most of this money comes over a 10-year period. So the value being a little bit higher, the expectation and kind of the whole design here is that on a present value basis, it nets out to be about the same. I think Pura used a 7% discount rate. I don't think most homeowners would be able to tell you what their personal discount rate is for the value of money, but the design here is for these to be about equivalent. So when you get to underserved, low income, we're expecting with the loss of the tax credit for a lot more systems to come in through third-party ownership. So these values and kind of the time value of money may be less important to customers. These might be more important to the third-party owner who gives an initial discount to a customer in exchange for 10 years of this revenue stream. So we're expecting, they're about equivalent. It changes the structure, but we're hoping that this doesn't have a notable effect on customer uptake. So you'll notice that the enrollment incentive in the new structure is pretty flat. It's either $450 for standard or $1,950 for grid edge, based on this system size of 15 kilowatt hours. So here's what the system looks like, or the incentive layout looks like for a 30 kilowatt hour system, which is just two of those Powerwall 3 or A Power 2s. So notably here, you can see that pretty quickly under the current structure, the incentive seems to cap out at that $16,000 maximum. So what the new incentive structure does is it actually gives it removes that ceiling, so there's actually a little bit more room for customers to be able to benefit from the full suite of incentives available for them. So, you know, for a little bit larger system, it hits that $16,000 cap pretty quickly. But now with a smaller enrollment incentive and no cap on that, the performance incentives can be a little bit bigger. So overall, you can see, you know, this is nearly a $10,000 difference between low income grid edge at the current and construct 5 rates. So next, we have a commercial system. This is on the smaller end. This is a 200 kilowatt, 500 kilowatt hour system. And you can see again, like in this case, the incentive is a little bit lower for a small commercial customer. But when you get up to, you know, someone who's sizing this about, you know, kind of a little bit below their annual peak demand, you'll see that even with no enrollment incentive or a very small enrollment incentive, it's still close to equivalent. It's designed to be a little bit more equivalent when you're looking at the larger size batteries, which I'll get to in a moment. So yes, it is a little bit lower in some cases for some of these systems, especially if you consider a priority customer. But it's designed on a fleet average basis to be about the same. So it does remove a significant upfront incentive, but the performance incentive is much higher. And finally, here's a larger system. This is about a 2-hour Tesla Megapack, about 1.9 megawatts, 3.7 megawatt hours. So all of these examples that I've been showing are assuming the same level of performance, which is about a 62% overall kind of capacity factor in the program, which is about what we see on average between all systems in the program. So they're all using the same expectation for performance incentive. And you can see that the performance incentives for this type of a system are significantly higher. And in some cases, the overall grouping or the overall total of incentives for these systems is equivalent to a little bit higher. So we're happy to see that the typical size system in the commercial side of the program, the Tesla Megapack, is roughly offering the same incentive. So now on to the program rollout. So our timeline here, so for right now, we have new residential and commercial cell sheets available, and co-branded versions are available for contractors who do the co-branding. When we send out the follow-up, we'll have links to resources, but for right now, you can go and you can check them out on the EnergyStorageCT.com website and contractor resources. You'll see there's both a Q1 and Q2 version of both these cell sheets. Q1 is just one that says what the current structure is, and it says this is going to expire on April 1st. And Q2 just says this is what the new structure is. Later this month, we expect the program manual to be published. We submitted the first draft of it on January 5th, but we had to make a few adjustments per PURA's request. So that'll be submitted later this week, and we expect it to most likely be approved within the next 2 weeks. February is, I think, when most contractors should start considering when you want to shift your sales strategy to the new incentives. So for right now, you may have customers that are really dependent on an upfront discount, and you want to make sure that those customers get through the pipeline and get submitted before April 1st so that they can capture that upfront incentive, especially if they're not concerned about passive dispatch or they you know, will perform well in the program. You know, you may want to consider for other customers who don't need an upfront incentive as much and they would rather have performance incentives or just have the flexibility to not have to do passive, those customers might want to wait until April 1st to get their application submitted. So there's just something to think about in the next couple of weeks. In March, we will begin to launch the new application forms in our contractor trainings. So invites to follow on that. The contractor training is typically meant for new contractors, but in March and April, we'll probably recommend that everyone do it just so that you can see what all the new fields are. It's not going to be too much different to submit an application, but it'll be good to just kind of get a feel for the new information that you might need to submit the applications. March 31st will be the last day to submit a new application. So that's hit submit, not start the application. So applications that come in that day will be considered for the current structure and passive dispatch. And then anything after that that has a submitted date after April 1st will be on Construct 5, and they won't be able to access passive incentive or passive dispatch and upfront incentive anymore. So these dates are probably a little bit more consequential for commercial projects. So commercial contractors, make sure you take note here. And just for anyone that submits in time, but their application gets rejected for any reason, we will give you adequate time to, keep passive dispatch as long as you submit by a certain time, which we'll specify in the rejection letter. So I know that was a lot of information, but we would be happy to take any questions from those in the chat. Feel free, I believe you can just put all your questions directly into the chat. And we also have some additional information on tranche capacity and things like that in our appendix here. So let's open up the Q&A. All right, so I'm seeing a couple come in here, so just a minute while I sort them out. Okay, so this question, so it appears that the program structure is shifting from upfront towards performance-based compensation, which as a result, customers can face higher initial capital costs under the new framework. Installers trying to understand how best to communicate this change to customers and expect and set expectations. So do we expect to see any friction or change in customer participation? That's a good question. With kind of the shift in federal and tax incentives at the end of 2025, we were expecting a shift to more third-party owned systems anyway, coming at the end of the year. I think that the performance-based incentive is a little bit better structured for large fleet operators like third-party owners. So I think it kind of goes hand in hand with the transition to third-party owned systems. And we are hoping to announce pretty soon that a couple of TPOs will be joining the program. But I think for your average customer who's either paying cash or taking out a loan, yes, it does. It might cause some hesitation there. But we do also allow for contractors or even lenders, such as a local bank or credit union, to give customers a discount in exchange for signing over their 10 years of performance incentives. So we did add additional flexibility for customers to sign over incentives to other entities other than a TPO or lender. So short answer is we're hoping that we don't see much of a shift, and if anything, the demand may increase with bringing on new TPOs into the program. Next question here. We haven't identified the behind the meter requirement. Are front of the meter systems allowed under Construct 5? So no, the program is not open to front of the meter systems that aren't able to power a customer's on-site load. So in general, front of the meter systems are not allowed in the program. However, there are some kind of narrow cases, such as multifamily housing, where technically the system is in front of the meter, but so long as you can use the system to decrease on-site load or provide resilience to a host customer, if it's technically in front of the meter, that is allowed, so long as it can do those two things. But if it's strictly in front of the meter and just tied straight to the distribution system, it is not allowed in the program. Is there a timeline for when projects enrolling in passive dispatch will need to be completed? So we have always had a 2-year requirement, a deadline. So once you receive a reservation of funds, residential project, or actually all projects get 2 years to be completed. You can request extensions on the commercial side. That's a lot more common. On residential, 2 years is typically more than enough time. Most projects are completed in that time. So just so long as you're within that 2-year period or a little bit longer, if you need an extension, you're okay. Just to follow up on the question about signing over incentives to a third party. So aside from third party owners like a Sunrun or LightReach, whomever else, we don't have any lenders or I'm not aware of any lenders currently who are building that into their model. That can be something the Green Bank is actively looking into it, whether it's something that as Pura has given us the ability to do it ourselves. We're not sure if we're going to end up doing it ourselves, or if we're just going to help identify third-party lenders who will do that. But we will continue to look into that being an option for customers. How do you define a priority customer? A priority commercial customer is someone who is either a small business, meaning they have a annual peak demand of less than 200 kilowatts, or they are a critical facility, meaning there's something like a hospital, police station, shelter, fire station. There is a definition of critical facility that we have in our program manual. This is all in the program manual as well. Priority customers can also be those who are on the grid edge, meaning they experience longer duration or more frequent power outages, or someone who is replacing a fossil fuel generator. So if they have a large gas generator on site and they're replacing it with a battery, they would qualify as priority. And large versus medium, it's actually not the BESS size, it's the customer's peak demand. So anyone under 200 kW of annual peak demand is small. Anyone 200 to 500 kW annual peak demand is medium, and anyone over 500 is large CNI. Okay. And if we want a project that's installed today to target Construct 5, would we just wait until April 1st? Yes. Short answer is yes. If you already have a reservation of funds, reach out to us to discuss that. If you already have a reservation for passive dispatch and upfront incentive, but if you sell a project today and you want to get it in Construct 5, you could just wait until April 1st to submit it. Interconnection does not need to be completed prior to April 1st, but you do have to have the interconnection application submitted. You don't need contingent or anything like that, just submitted. Oh, and the energy storage solutions application, you need to submit the interconnection application in order to receive approval for the ESS application too. And it has to be export because it's after January 1st. on the, so just a additional clarifying question about FTM. So correct, every project that enrolls in ESS, whether it's the legacy program or the new program, it has to be cited to a building load. So no distribution connected systems for the meter at all. Okay. Through here. So will the terms and conditions doc be the same for Eversource and UI? Yes, finally, we're happy to report that, and it won't differ for different OEM, for different battery OEMs as well. So same one for Resi, commercial, Tesla, Franklin, Uplight, Energy Hub, everyone. Construct 5 cannot be stacked with connected solutions. So if you are currently in connected solutions, or if your customer is in connected solutions and you want to transfer to Construct 5, we will have more information about that later on. But in short, those customers won't be able to access the enrollment incentive, but they can access the higher performance incentive. So if you're in connected solutions now, you'll most likely want to switch over to the new program because it's basically the same with more money. Okay, and looking through a few more here. So just to clarify, I said no batteries can be connected directly to the distribution system, meaning they have to flow through a customer's meter. So that just means no front of the meter systems. They have to be behind the meter. And I just want to make sure I'm getting them all. Oh, is this coming? Okay, it's coming through the chat too. Is there a set of instructions for customers to enroll via Tesla or Franklin apps? That's actually something that we're working on. We actually added that to the new technology application. And when it comes to what the customer or the contractor actually see for enrolling batteries, we're working on collecting more resources for you as the contractor to be able to work through that better. We also, in the new manual, we really explicitly clarify the difference between customer enrollment and battery enrollment and the steps that are necessary to do both. Next question, on this to Brendan. Any news about EcoFlow batteries being added to the list?
Yes, they are pre-approved through the program. They're working through integration with the DERMS platforms, Energy Hub and Uplight.
All right, good news. Let's check over back at the Q&A, see if there's anything else here. So I'm not.
Original one with some follow-ups at the bottom.
Let's see. Any plans to allow homeowners to file for themselves? So short answer is yes, and that is that actually is still available, or it's currently available and it will remain available. So if for whatever reason the contractor can't or doesn't want to submit the application on the customer's behalf, the in-app customer-led enrollment will still be available. However, those customers won't be able to access the enrollment incentive. You know, if it's $900 and the customer, or, you know, $450 or $900 and the customer doesn't, you know, care as much in exchange for the convenience, they're okay to do that and they're welcome to enroll that way. The method by which they enroll through the app, I know that Tesla offers it, but we haven't really seen any other OEMs that are doing it the same way. And I know Franklin and Enphase have customer-led enrollment, but it's not quite the same as Tesla. So in short, yes, the customer can enroll themselves just for active dispatch incentives, not for the enrollment incentive. Anything new here? Limits such as 150% of the load, similar to before? No. So, wait, still there. Yeah. Okay. So the limit on the system size of 150% of the meter load, that one actually, I will get back to that question. I just want to make sure that the way that we wrote it into the manual has stayed the same. And then EV charging. So how does EV charging play into site load when it's a new EV facility? That one, I think I'm going to have to get back to you on that question as well. And I think what you mean, Bill, is if it's a new EV charger going into the building and you're considering if they're small, medium, or large based on the anticipated load of those EV chargers. So I will get back to you on that question. Historical participation to date, can you share the breakdown of the 62% capacity factor? Brendan, I'm going to put you on the spot unless you want to punt that one.
Purchase e-boost.
No, I'm sorry. The question on the historical participation.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah. So do you have a breakdown of the, how that 62% capacity factor comes out when you factor in depth of discharge, performance?
That 62% is strictly the actual average performance during active hours divided by the maximum expected performance, or the average maximum expected performance for systems. So it's taking the lesser of so to set the maximum expected dispatch, take the kilowatt hour capacity of the battery, the lesser of the kilowatt hour capacity of the batteries divided by the average active event duration, so about 2.5 hours, or the inverter rating. And so if you take an average of that across all systems, that gives you the average expected dispatch across the fleet, and then compare that to the actual discharge for those hours, and it's 62%.
Thanks, Brendan. And I think last question, we're about out of time. Was the Fortress eBoost 16 kilowatt hour added to the list?
I don't think that's on there yet.
This is Matt. It was actually added just last week.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Matt. All right, so I think that covers it. If there's any questions that we missed, we'll definitely run through them again one more time and make sure that we get everybody an answer. So thank you all very much for joining us, and we will have a copy of this recording posted on the ESS website, and we'll send out a reminder by email. So thanks a lot, and feel free to reach out to us directly, energystorage@ctgreenbank.com, if you have questions about what's coming up next. So thanks again, and have a great day.